Joel Corry, who is kind enough to spend some time with us now at Joel Corry on Twitter, former NFL agent. You can catch a lot of his work with CBS Sports. Joel, how in the world are you doing on this beautiful Wednesday?
Well, I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Doing fantastic.
Awesome.
The Titans' bank account got a little better today because of the Julio. We were talking about this in the first segment, and people were like, wait, didn't they cut him months ago? Well, yeah, they told him they were going to cut him, but none of that became official until today. I know you got
tomorrow. Actually, tomorrow.
Okay. Close of business today, so the cap hit hits tomorrow, or the cap money, in this case, the savings. But I know you can discuss that a little bit. You have an article coming out, I guess, about NFL teams who are going to be experiencing the same bump in finances, right, because of June 1 cuts?
Yes, that's correct. That's coming out on CBS sometime today. Now, for you guys, you have about 280 cap room. So with Julio, he had his – if you use a posting one designation when you cut someone, that allows you to cut them before June 2nd. And teams get two of these guys each league year that they can use. They don't have to use two posting one designations. But you have to carry the player's full cap number on the cap until June 2nd. And then on June 2nd, you get the cap savings. And how it works is you get to treat the guy like he was cut after June 1st, even though he was cut prior to that. And the big implication is any bonus proration from future years doesn't hit the cap this year. It's a cap charge next year. So in Julio's case, he's got a $14.313 million cap number. There's $2.8 million of bonus proration associated with 2022. He's got a $2 million salary guarantee that has no offset, so the Titans are stuck with that. So they're going to have a $4.8 million cap hit for him starting tomorrow and pick up $9.153 million of cap room. Next year, there's an $8.4 million cap charge for Julio.
What do you do with that much money? You think this is when we see them go after another offensive lineman, maybe go after another veteran receiver to try to bolster that room some?
Well, one thing you have to keep in mind is that come September 8th at midnight, the first day of the regular season, cap accounting changes. The top 51 players count at the beginning of the league year through that date, September 8th. After that point, everything counts.
Yeah.
So that can be anywhere from a $4 to $6 million swing in cap room lost. So part of that is going to go to getting through the season, so hopefully they don't have to restructure another contract. Part of the problem with Julio was that when you got him last year, you restructured his contract, which compounded the problem.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why you have the dead money or the residual cap charge for Julio. Had you not done anything and left his contract alone, then you could have walked away from his contract with zero cap charges.
Oh, you just sent a shudder down everybody's spine here. Joel Corry, our guest, former NFL agent, now with CBS Sports.
I guess, Joe, you know better than anybody with your back history. I guess give us some misnomers or some things that usually gets misunderstood about contracts or the salary cap that you always kind of get questions about, including us, of course, all the time, that kind of you want to get clarity on, that, you feel like people get confused.
Well, one question I get is how does signing bonus proration go with the acquiring team in a trade? No, that's a sunk cost for the original team. That signing bonus proration stays with the original team. Nothing you can do about it when a player is traded. And then some people get a little confused in what happens in a trade. You're acquiring the remainder of a player's contract. So if there are any salary guarantees left in the contract, they go to the new team. So you get whatever's left in that contract. And that kind of get more questions you think about stuff like that.
Yeah, more and more, I'm always hearing, does the salary cap really exist? If somebody said that to you, tell me how you would respond to that.
The salary cap exists. It's just a matter of how you want to manage it. And here's an example of why of it existing. Last year in the pandemic, when the salary cap went from $198.2 million to $182.5 million, Yes, the Saints had to shed about $110 million of payroll, but they also cut players which could have been useful. The reason why Janoris Jenkins wasn't with the Saints was because the cap dropped, so they had to get rid of him. Emmanuel Sanders got released and went to the Bills because they had to get rid of him, and they had a big void at receiver last year, Michael Thomas being hurt the whole year, so they really could have used Emmanuel Sanders last year. So, yes, the salary cap is real. It keeps you from keeping some players that you want to keep. Also, if you have an excessive amount of dead money, that's a salary cap charge for players no longer on the roster. That means you have less cap room, workable cap room you can use to improve the roster for that particular year.
No doubt about it. Along with Joe Corry, he's done NFL contracts, salary cap, and been an agent as well as he worked for CBS Sports. I guess, down the road, Aaron Donald's going to get a contract. And how would you approach this from an organizational side and then from an agent side? Give us two different perspectives, because you could say he's great and he's done a lot of great things, but should he be quarterback type money at this point in his career, even though he's still probably the most dominant, if not, top 3 dominant defensive players in the National Football League?
Well, if I'm the agent, the one thing I didn't like is the way he's been couching things publicly. I'm at peace if I don't play. I only wanted to play 8 years.
Yeah,
that's not going to inspire a team to want to pay you if you're thinking mindset 1 foot out the door. I suspect that a lot of that is banter related to him being dissatisfied with the contract, but I would have preferred him to say that, yeah, I'll play until they don't want me anymore in LA, as long as the money's right, instead of I'm at peace, I'm done, and I'm okay. That implies he's okay if he doesn't get a new contract. Now, from the Rams standpoint, I'm not enthusiastic about paying him significant amounts of money knowing he could be a short-timer. And then the way it's going to be structured will be interesting. The big sticking point in this whole thing, if they get something done, which I suspect they will, is whether what's getting prorated is a fully guaranteed roster bonus or signing bonus. If it's a fully guaranteed roster bonus, it's getting prorated over the remainder of the contract or how many years are added to it. After 2022, the Rams can't go back and recapture money. As a signing bonus, they'd be entitled to get the prorated amounts back from the years he doesn't play. So that's going to be a big sticking point. He's not going to get quarterback money, because when you say quarterback money, I'm now thinking $40-45 million per year.
Yeah.
But the problem is Aaron Donald was the highest paid non-quarterback when he signed, the first $20 million per year non-quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
He's not even among the top 10 highest paid non-quarterbacks in the league now. He's got 3 years left on his contract, and you usually don't get a contract redone with 3 years. So the question is, how do you handle that? I would be surprised if they didn't get if they just added money to the existing 3 years, because teams don't do that. They don't just gratuitously give you money without getting something in return, additional years. And then the question is, are they going to rip it up and treat it like those 3 years don't exist? That typically doesn't happen. So there's probably going to be something like $60 million of new money added for 2 new years, and some of that $60 million gets allocated over the existing 3 years, and it goes from there. And that's a situation where they've had a lot of acrimony in the past with his contract negotiations. He held out after his 3rd year, didn't get a contract, won Defensive Player of the Year. So to me, he doesn't need to show up for training camp. Held out the next year, finally got paid. So I'm sure that dynamic factors into all this as well.
How much does him have it? I think he has a new agent with Kanye West and those guys, Donda Sports. Is this their first rodeo, or does that impact it at all?
Well, my understanding is that's just marketing.
Okay.
They're doing the marketing, and he kept his contract agent, Brian Irault, who is very aggressive in terms of being willing to push the envelope. The longest holdout for a rookie player under the rookie wage scale, which was implemented in 2011, was by Joey Bosa. That's a Brian Irault client. He held out Aaron Donald twice. So if the money's not there, you're not going to see Aaron Donald. So I still think this retirement thing that was my first thought when it came up Super Bowl Sunday in the pregame with Rodney Harrison, that Aaron Donald's unhappy with his contract. That was just me being an agent. And I still think that's the case. I'll believe it when I see it if he retires. But if he does, then you can put him in the same category, or premature or early retirements for Jim Brown or Barry Sanders.
We're on with Joel Corry, salary cap specialist.
Joel, should the Titans try to get something done with Jeffrey Simmons before the Aaron Donald deal, so then you don't have some unbelievably unattainable number hanging out there? Or do you think they don't care? They're just going to offer what they think Big Jeff is worth?
They probably don't care, but a rising tide lifts all boats. So if Aaron Donald gets to 30, it's going to help the interior defensive lineman, because right now there's a logjam. That nobody's been able to pass Aaron Donald's $22.5 million per year. And why I say a rising tide lifts all boats, look what's happened at the tight end market. You had George Kittle just put it way out there compared to where it was. Austin Hooper became the first tight end to get over $10 million per year on a multi-year deal. Then Kittle came in at 15 a couple of months later. And now you've got guys slotting in under Kittle, like most recently David Njoku, whose deal averages almost $14 million per year. Jonnu Smith's at 12.5. Hunter Henry's at 12.5. You got Dallas Goedert at 14.25. Mark Andrews at 14. So they were all able to get between where Austin Hooper was and where George Kittle is now because of Kittle putting some distance between the rest of the market. So I anticipate that would also happen with Jeffrey Simmons. I try to get them done sooner rather than later, because the longer you wait to pay great ascending talent, the more it's going to cost you in the long run. But the Titans have never paid a first-round pick who had their fifth-year option exercised after 3 seasons.
Whoa.
If you are Big Jeff's agent, he calls you today and says, Joel, you're too good on CBS. You got to start repping me. What's your number for Big Jeff?
Well, Big Jeff is his own agent.
I know. I'm saying if he calls you and says, I want you to give me the big bucks, Joel.
Yeah, that way in case he calls me, I'll say I rep him. I'll take 2%.
I'm assuming Aaron Donald comes in at 30. And if Aaron Donald comes in at 30, I want 25 per year, that is.
I'd be trying to get that thing done sooner or later to not get to 25. Joel Corry, our guest here on Blaine and Mickey, at Joel Corry or at Corry Joel rather on Twitter. It's his name's in reverse. You need to find him there for a bunch of good information.
Well, Joel, you got some.
If you go my name, first name, last name, it's a British DJ who's starting to make a big name for himself in electronic dance music. But that's not me.
But we like music too. We'll like both of you.
Well, as long as you're negotiating his contracts, I think you're all good.
Yeah, no doubt.
Now, we got a lot of guys whose contracts may get extended, and kind of take us through this. I guess we're talking about Kyler Murray, Cooper Kupp, Lamar, Debo. Where do you think we're at with some of these contracts, and will they get done? And if you do, what do you think their price range would be?
Well, the wide receiver market, as you know firsthand, has exploded, which is why A.J. Brown's Philadelphia Eagle. Cooper Kupp is taking a different tack than Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald's going to want every last dollar. Mm-hmm. Cooper Kupp, when OTA started, or the offseason workout program started, said he just wants what's fair, that he doesn't get caught up in being the highest paid. So it's conceivable that he could sign a deal which averages less than A.J. Brown. He's got 2 years left on his contract, although he can make a case he should be the highest paid guy after what he did last year. Yeah. That's not where his focus seems to be.
What is his per year, though, Joel, right now?
Right now, the base value was $15.75 million per year on a deal he signed in 2020.
Gotcha.
And right after he signed it, they had to adjust Robert Woods' deal because their production was comparable, and Woods was making like $7.5 a year, so they couldn't have that. But you're going to see Debo, assuming that he wants to be a 49er, that's probably going to get done, and I expect that to be more than A.J. Brown. The interesting thing with the receiver market is one agent controls most of it, and that's Corey Danby. who is A.J. Brown's agent, DK Metcalf's agent, also Deebo Samuel's agent, also represents Chris Godwin and Mike Williams, who signed for $20 million per year. Kyler Murray's been an interesting case because he's wanted to deal in the worst way. He's been extremely impatient because back in February, his agent was pushing for a deal and put out that all caps statement through social media. You usually don't go to the media, to me, until there's an impasse and it's a last resort. I thought that was a premature card to play. Murray showed up for OTAs today, which is a first. He'd been missing all the off-season workout program stuff. But the problem is this Deshaun Watson deal, that some quarterback, and he's probably going to insist upon it initially, I want a fully guaranteed contract like Deshaun Watson. And the Cardinals are one of the cash-poor teams in the NFL, so they can't really afford to do that. I expect it to be in the over $40 million per year, with more conventional guarantees. I don't think you get a fully guaranteed contract out of him. And then there's Lamar Jackson, who doesn't seem to be interested in negotiating a contract. The Ravens seem to be more interested than he is, and that's just a bizarre situation in and of itself.
Do you think – I think now people are saying it's not just his mother with Lamar, but it's also just his team, and I guess he has someone who actually negotiates his contract. Do you think that's an issue, or is it's just strictly on it's Lamar who's kind of waiting to see how this all settles out? Maybe he's unhappy and just says, hey, I'll do this year, and if they franchise, I'll do one more year, and then I'll move on.
Oh, they'll franchise him twice. He's gonna if he wants to hit the open market, he's got to do what Kirk Cousins did, which is get franchised twice, and the third franchise tag would be so absorbent they probably wouldn't do it. But he's got all the complete information that by not trying to follow Josh Allen's lead last year, get a deal done after the third year, he's made money because the longer you wait for a good player that stays healthy, the more you're going to have to pay him. You got the $230 million basketball contract for Deshaun Watson. Aaron Rodgers is at $50 million per year. Who else is going to be the intervening event? Who's going to be in that stratosphere? Russell Wilson is the one guy I could see getting there. If Lamar really, really waits, then you're going to have Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert. They're not eligible to sign new deals until the 2022 regular season ends. But there's enough information now for him. If he could get the Deshaun Watson deal, which basically be more guaranteed money than in Steph Curry's contract or Giannis Antetokounmpo's contract, then pull the trigger.
No doubt about it. We're on with Joe Corry, former NFL agent. I guess lastly for me real quick, and that is, I know you have an article coming out about, the June 1st and everything else. Kind of give us a peekaboo behind the curtain before it comes out, some of the things you're going to be touching on.
Touching on Julio Jones being released and the cap implications for that. Landon Collins will be one of the guys mentioned. Austin Hooper, a post-June designation was used on him when the Browns released him. I expect that he's going to play a bigger role in your offense than you might anticipate because you got a rookie wide receiver on one side and Robert Woods coming off the knee injury. So if you get the Atlanta Austin Hooper that played in 2 Pro Bowls as a replacement player in the last 2 years, was catching over 70 passes for over 700 yards. I know you don't utilize a tight end in a run-ordered offense, but you may have to a little bit more than you have in the past, then he could be a surprise.
Hey, on the way out, Derrick Henry not in camp, OTAs rather. He's off doing the stuff that he normally does, and we enjoy his video exploits. There's some speculation out there that his camp wants guaranteed money since he's out of it, that they might want some type of new contract situation. What do you think is the ultimate happening for that, or the Titans just let the next couple of years or the next year only play out? What do you think is the end game for this?
I would not touch Derrick Henry's contract under any circumstance. To me, it's fortunate he got injured because you guys are going to run that guy on the ground the way you were using him before he hurt his foot. Running backs usually have diminishing returns after heavy usage. Unless he's the ultimate anomaly, then Derrick Henry, after the 4 years expire from his contract he signed when franchised, the 2 years left, I would not pay that guy big money. If he's going to be the anomaly, so be it, but I would wait until he's done after the 2 years, play it by ear, and go from there. from the Titans.
What would you do if you were Derrick Henry's agent? Would you tell him just stay away, or how would you handle it?
Well, if he's willing to incur a $50,000 fine per day for not showing up in the training camp, by all means. Most players don't want to do that since the fines can no longer be forgiven.
Yeah.
And that's why when a player wants a contract like T.J. Watt last year, you had to hold in where they show up and just do work on the side and conditioning and don't participate in anything which puts them at real risk.
A hold in instead of a holdout. What a time to be alive. Joel, fantastic stuff, man. People need to follow you, CBS Sports. Of course, you got a great article coming out about June 1st cap savings. Always great stuff on your Twitter as well, at Corry Joel. Tons of great info. Thank you, sir. Always good catching up with you.
All right, man. Be checking out your new tunes.
You guys.
Yes, sir. Joel Corry. Yeah. You can follow Joel Corry for all the greatest DJ tunes and Corry Joel for all your latest NFL financial information. When we